What's up? We're both
It's
doing it outside.
that's it, man. We are. I am so happy to see that. You know, I got so much to learn from you.
Vice versa, I think.
Tap water, Teflon, caffeine. Man, I gotta get that energy flowing through my podcast.
Dude, listen, I don't even want to think of this as a podcast because I just want to get to know you. But we're just gonna record it anyway, and maybe people will appreciate that. Yeah, so I want to get to know you because your life sounds so freaking interesting in terms of like all the interviews and knowledge and topics, and now your podcast. It's like what's making you tick right now? What are you the most jazzed about right now?
You're catching me at a very interesting time, impactful time. And I would say if we had this conversation about 3 months ago or 4 months ago, I wouldn't have been as zoned in. What happened to me was I basically spent 20 years writing a column for Esquire magazine called What I've Learned, with all the icons of the last 75 years. And so basically one day I'm with Jeff Bezos, the next I'm with Mikhail Gorbachev, the next I'm with Muhammad Ali or George Foreman. And I was just accumulating wisdom, asking questions, accumulating wisdom. And after 20 years, I sort of took that on the road and started giving speeches about the power of questions and the power of storytelling. And that was great. I really enjoyed speaking, and I still do that. But when COVID hit, the landscape completely changed. There's no more gigs out there. And in a way, I'm so grateful, because if things had just continued in that way, I would have just kept on going around the world, having a good time. It was a great way to make a living. But my father was approaching 90, and then COVID hit. And so we realized, okay, got to help him through this. And so my wife and I moved back to where he was living in North Carolina. And I got to spend the last year of his life with him and care for him. And at the same time, my podcast was kind of breathing this in, taking it in by osmosis. And I started to ask all these questions about healthcare and started to see how beyond broken it was. I mean, even now, we're like 1 million nurses short in this country. We're going to be 1.5 million if trends continue by 2030. We're going to be losing 100,000 doctors in the next 3 years. They're burnt out. They're at retirement age. They're moving on. And there's like nothing in place to just fill this void. And so I'm watching that. I'm watching how people are complaining about the way that billing is administered, and they go into emergency rooms. And I was just talking to a mom the other day. Her kid had a little infection in his finger and went to the emergency room. In 3 minutes, finger was lanced. He cleaned it up, sent him out the door, and got a bill a few weeks later for $3,000 with they complained. They went to an advocate and found out that the advocate was advocating for the hospital. And this is something that all needs to be corrected. And so like for a year and a half, my podcast was just kind of wandering around, just asking these questions and like, well, what's going on? And I had on Dr. Fauci and Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General. And you start to amass information. And now I'm at the point where I'm saying, okay, we need some solutions. And we need to point out, that's why when I say tap water, Teflon, caffeine, I wasn't joking, because you have a way of identifying the things that can be taking us down and showing us the path to sidetracking them or just getting them out of our way so we can live healthier lives. And in many ways, that's what I want my podcast to do, is to be that laser light that can tell people how to get the most out of their health and also the healthcare system.
Wow. Well, number one, the story of you being able to be with your dad, beautiful, amazing, and what a blessing that had to have been, dude.
Yeah, the thing about it was he never wanted to live one day without a quality of life. That was his thing. And he got to 90 eating cheesecakes and pastrami sandwiches. But I think a big part of it was his mentality was, okay, I'm here, I'm gonna have a good time. And the moment I cannot have a good time, it's time to go. And it literally came down to the last day where he did get COVID. And that was an amazing experience because I got through COVID with him. But there were other diseases that were tearing him down, and it just took down his defenses. And so after a while, he was in a reclining chair and he could no longer get up. And in fact, we helped him up. And as we got him to his bed, I knew that's it. He's not going to be able to get up or down. And for him, that means it's over. And the very night, I just started calling my son just because I knew this is it. He is not going to want to move forward. But I also was calling nurses in and people. And when nurses got there, they were looking at me saying, Cal, like, you don't understand. Like, he is a long way from going. It's like, look at his legs. When a patient is in that position, like the blood in his legs will go up to his organs to try and keep him going. And you'll see his legs start to get like red. And look at him, his legs are the same color they always are. And I'm saying, like, you don't understand. My dad was like a manager for IBM for 27 years. It was about getting from point A to point B as quick as possible. And she's saying, no, you're not going to get it. And like, as we're going back and forth, my dad just turned the switch off. And the next thing you know, the nurse is saying, I think he might be going. He might be going. And I'm just looking at it. I knew exactly what was going to happen. And there was something triumphant about it, because he never had to live one day the way he didn't want to live. Wow. And yeah, for me to share that with him, it was a beautiful thing. And many of the people who showed up at the funeral, they were far, far more, what's the right word? Is it depressed? Is it sad? You're seeing somebody you truly love gone. Than I was, because I got to live it all in this last year. We had dinner every night. We watched a double feature every night. And, thank you, COVID, for opening that up for me. And there's a lot of things I learned in that year, and a lot of ways to actually help families going through that, because there's so much you don't know.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like it's so easy to point. It's so easy to blame things and blame the world and blame our governments and blame so much. But in fact, even though wildly uncomfortable for everybody, these things have a way of having an opportunity buried in them somewhere, right? And so we do have to thank ourselves, because also the questions you ask, and I love the title of your podcast, the big questions, right? So being fueled by the challenges, being fueled, and then being able to like talk through like what the hell's going on with our healthcare system, what clearly, the last 2 years I've been staring at this shit for a while, not in the bowels of it, but certainly from an advocate of health. I think it should be named something different than healthcare system, just personally. Like it's active module for health, but more of a strong reactive measure. But obviously that's a lot to unpack right there. But so I'm so that's beautiful about your dad. But I am curious, because you obviously had some incredible people to talk to, and I have my own point of view about healthcare and stuff too. But like, you're able to talk through some of these people. What were your big takeaways? I mean, because the cool thing about you is you'll ask a question, and you've put yourself in a position to get some high powered people who have the authority to know more and to be more than a normal person. So I'm curious what some of your takeaways were.
I'm going to tell you my biggest takeaway, and this may surprise you. It's that it's the outsiders who have the biggest chance of making a change, making an impact, because the people who are locked in this behemoth, there's like walls around them, ceilings over them. And when you look at like the new companies that are coming up, quite often it's people who had a problem in their life, a healthcare problem, and they just devoted the rest of their life to solving it. My computer was frying under the sun. And it just like flacked out.
Right.
Did you have that same experience?
I'm luckily under an oak tree.
I was telling you this story about this guy named Asaf Kraus, and he's late 20s. He's met a girl. He really likes her. Goes out on a date, and like, this is the night that he's gonna say, I really want this to be something special. Thing about it is he's got irritable bowel syndrome. Yeah, so you can imagine the setup. Like, you could see it in a movie. And he sits down, they start talking, and his stomach just says, get to the bathroom, right now. So he gets to the bathroom, he excuses himself, gets to the bathroom, he's constipated. And now he knows, like, from past experience, this is not going to a good place, but he's got to soldier through it. So he goes back to the table, starts talking. Same thing. His stomach is just get to the bathroom, get to the bathroom. Runs to the bathroom, is constipated. And it's happened like 5 times.
Oh my
And
God.
like sadly, the woman didn't really have much sympathy for him. He tried to explain that he's going to a gastroenterologist and problem's going to be taken care of. But it didn't work. And not only that, but the gastroenterologist couldn't really help him either. He found out that this is not really a curable malady. And they just,
From their perspective.
they tried one thing. Does this work? Don't eat this. Try that. And, if they're lucky, they hit. And so this guy is examining for Uber and categorizing and making sense of like millions of rides at airports. And he decides to take this way of thinking to try to solve his disease, because traditional medicine is not. And so he invents a way, and I got to set this up properly. When you go to the gastroenterologist with the problem, they often say, there are like 5 different levels to what your poop looks like when it lands. Is it diarrhea? Is it all the way up to constipation?
Right.
And he realizes, number 4 to one person might seem like number 2 to another. So the gastroenterologist doesn't really know what it looks like. So he invents a way to take pictures of his poop, and it will not be visible on his phone. If somebody picks up his phone and looks for it and goes through his photos, it's not there. So you have a measure of security, privacy. And he basically puts this out into the world so that anybody with this problem, he's on Reddit and he's letting people know, can come and get his invention, take these pictures, and he creates this archive, which people can now look at and say, okay, this is what I ate. This is what the discharge looks like. And now you've got like tens of thousands of experiences. And, the next thing he's got like the largest healthcare company in America behind him and one of the biggest hospitals. And it's stories like that I'm hearing over and again that actually give a great sense of hope. We just got to get these stories out there so that anybody with irritable bowel syndrome, tell them to listen to the podcast with Asaf Krauss, and they'll know where to go to find Dieta Health, and they can actually feel better.
Wow. So the whole idea was he created a way to log and capture kind of before and after, literally, what you ate, the results of that, and then start for people to start tracking and understanding that they're reacting because of X, Y, and Z, because this is the effect. And so with tens of thousands, then you actually start to correlate more and more data. So now you have data based on thousands, but who the hell is going to do that unless they have this experience, unless they have, so it was like a perfect storm for him. He used his brilliance and started taking pictures of poop. And
there you go. And you'll see this in so many cases. I got a podcast. This actually gave me the most hope of all. It's a company called Transparent, and the CEO, guy named Glenn Tolman, the story actually kind of goes back to his college days where he had this professor that he had really admired. And after graduating, he went into business and he made a bunch of money. And he went back to school to give a talk. And he visited his old professor who told him, like, what are you doing with your life? And, here he's thinking, well, look at me, I'm coming back to school to speak. And the professor said, we really, when you came here, we didn't educate you to make money. We educated you to make a difference. What difference are you making? And so he leaves thinking about this. Not long after that, his son has diabetes. Another family member has diabetes. And he basically creates a company called Livongo that manages diabetes. And a couple of years ago sold for $18 billion. He then took the next step to create this company called Transcarent. And if you can imagine having a Expedia for your health needs, so that you could go on the internet and, number one, you need to talk to a doctor, 60 seconds, any time of the day, any day of the week, any week of the month, any month of the year. You're right there. So you can see that putting basic things that we need in, like affordable prescriptions, and you need somebody to care for you at home, you can get that. You can also look around, you need surgery, we'll show you the best surgeons and the price points, and you can make a decision. And he has figured out a way to do this with companies like Delta. It's not insurance, it's aside the insurance, but the savings actually comes from the profits of the insurance companies that were basically between the healthcare and the patient. So he's completely reinvented the possibility for a new way of looking at healthcare. And again, he was an outsider. So this is what I'm seeing again and again. And look, I'm an outsider. I didn't know, I had no thoughts of going into healthcare, looking into it, but I'm glad I did, because it's really given me a sense of meaning and purpose.
That's cool. I mean, and the thing is, I think that the cool thing that you're doing is you're not only learning, but you're illuminating that which a normal person's not going to know, all of these things that are going on kind of as collateral to all of this stuff, right? And it's like, yeah, a few people do, and they're making millions and billions of dollars, but the average person doesn't know that, oh man, I didn't know that's available. I didn't know that. And so it opens up this menu, because it's just so archaic, I think, the way that this is still set up, right? You said, like, the box that you were saying before, like, the box is pretty much the box, right? And then you have to have kind of a renegade to go outside, build something up, prove it, and then they'll come in and kind of, use it, or gobble it up, or maximize it, whatever that is. And that's a cool. I agree. I mean, the thing that screams at me the most, Cal, is, I will always go back to this, like, and I want to hear your point of view, and if you've gotten into any of this stuff with any of the experts. The elephant in the room with our healthcare system is that the traditional learning, still to this day, speaks nothing of what you put in your mouth, of the air you breathe, the sleep you get, the movement you do or don't do, the eliminate, again, I can go off on all the toxins and all of this other stuff, but they're not talking about, some doctors still today will say, it doesn't even matter. Like if you have irritable bowel, it doesn't matter what you put in your mouth. That's like the biggest crock of shit. Like, how is that? How can you even let that out of your mouth? These people are good people, smart people, but the level of narcissistic, I don't know another word, or the level of just complete, I don't know what the answer, so therefore I'm just going to go with this one. Um, that's what just drives me crazy. Clearly, functional medicine, naturopathic, uh, you know, great doctors getting more education and functional understanding, acupuncture, all of these things should not be on the side. They should be part of this healthcare system. So it just makes me crazy to go like, listen, even in that 2 years, you know, and on the one hand, I'm not going to open up this Pandora's box, to the point where we're going to be uncomfortable with talking about some of the stupid shit that they've done or didn't do. But the point is that getting air, getting outside, getting vitamin D, like that shit is so basic that, you're like, for God's sakes, the worst thing you can do is keep people inside if they can go outside and breathe some fresh air. Like if you wanted to hurt people, that's what you do. Keep them inside and
Make them sit all day. Yeah.
yeah, and suffocate themselves and increase their CO2 and all that stuff. Again, I'm not going to open up that Pandora's box too much, but the point is, for me, it just magnified the idiocy of healthcare in that box you're talking about, right? And it's like, fucking eat an apple. It's got 300 compounds that are beneficial to your health, right? And it's like, vitamin C, vitamin D, like, for God's sakes, breathe. It increases your oxygen saturation. Like, it calms your body down. Like, my God, how can we be in 2022 and have our healthcare system not be, and not even understand the basic tenets of health, and promote it? Like, like, God. So again, I'm going to pause right there because I can keep talking about it, but what are your thoughts on that? And what have you maybe excavated from some of that?
Well, the interesting thing about it is when I brought that up, not as in the same passionate vein, that tap water, Teflon, caffeine. But what would happen is the doctors would say to me, Cal, we were never taught about that in medical school. There's no curriculum for that. And so what we're doing is when we see a problem, there's a standard of care, and we are delivering that standard of care. And so you have a problem right from the start, from the education of the people that need to be educating.
Yeah.
And in a crazy way, and it gets to this point of the outsider, and you're sitting outside, and I was a second ago before it got a little too hot for the computer. It is incumbent upon outsiders to step up and say, you know what? I may not know very much about this, but I can look in and ask questions. And I can guarantee you that there's been nobody who has gone off on all these different tangents like I have, because I didn't know where I was going. Somebody would introduce me to somebody in a situation about how to, when you go into the emergency room, how to rewrite the emergency bill so you don't get hit with outlandish charges. And so 1 week I'm learning about that. Another week I'm learning about Olipop soda, which is made out of plant fibers. And I just am kind of seeing all these different people that are trying to step up and find better ways. And I'm also listening to people who are talking about how messed up the system is, while at the same time is performing miracles every day.
Sure.
I had a guy on my podcast who had a heart transplant, and he's actually become a friend of mine, and like it's kind of amazing that they pulled his heart out, put in a new one, and all right, meet me at the Mexican restaurant next Tuesday.
Right.
We kind of take that for granted. So I don't want to lose sight of that, but you are so right in that it really does go to basic things that we all can do. And yet at the same time, take a trip anywhere and pull off to get gas at a convenience store and look at the aisles in that store. Look at what they're selling. It's just pure sugar. And I don't even know if what they're selling as meat is actual meat. But, when you see those hot dogs on those rollers, they're there for like 4 days. You really got to wonder what that would do to your insides if you took a bite.
Well, we know it's a carcinogen. We already know that. It's already publicated, and it's like, and we're selling it, and to that point, that's my other, right? So that's my other side. These fatal conveniences that you're referencing, I wish I didn't have to talk about them. I wish they didn't exist. I wish this wasn't a thing. But the thing is, everywhere I look, and this came from my whole origin story, was my father suffered from chemical sensitivity when in the 90s. And so just to be around him, he didn't have the ability to be around anything that was chemicalized. He couldn't even wear a shirt that would off gas formaldehydes of any kind. He couldn't deodorant, shampoos. So you'd have to give us the kind of things that we needed to use in order to be around him, or else it would neurologically fog him out. So, my dad's passed away since then, but his legacy lives inside of me because I'm
Wow.
staring at this stuff, dude. And I'm like, when I see a bib that goes around a newborn while they're eating, and it's easily wiped off, and it's made from the the grandson of Teflon, called PFAS, I'm going, what the fuck are we doing? Right? Like, that should be so illegal, and or whatever term. The fact that you could, those convenience store foods are all contributing. I don't know what that, let's just use your friend as an example of, one of the leading causes of death in our country, which is mostly, very, very few, a half of 1% is actually genetic. Most of it, if not all of it, is self-prescribed. It's the habit and the lifestyle and the convenience foods and the ultra processed foods, and like it's sprinting us towards heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all of that stuff. So it's like, so that's what I'm staring at. So let's do something to not have to have your friend have to, crack his damn chest open, take out his heart. And yes, I will celebrate the fact that just to do that, it's unbelievable that we can do that. But aren't we missing the other point? The other point is, what the hell are we doing feeding ourselves this shit? Even, you look at the, all these agencies, the acronym agencies, FDA and USDA and FCC and all of this stuff. They even write articles about it. Yep, that's a class 2 carcinogen. That's a thing. Yeah, but then they don't regulate it. I'm like, so the delusion is that there's regulation. Every so often they'll regulate something. But at the end of the day, you go in that convenience store and that shit's poison. Period. End of story. So that's my frustration, Cal, and that yes, is our healthcare system freaking miraculous. But it's like throwing an athlete out on the field while you just put a nail in his heel. It's like it makes no freaking sense. The fact that we're feeding our population this food, and then oh yeah, well we have the most advanced healthcare system in the world, but you know, there's a, people are not healthy, and we're just killing ourselves over time. And so that's the rewriting of the healthcare system. If we can start from that beginning, why wouldn't we right now change their curriculum and give the doctors a minimum year of nutrition? And like, you know,
Great, great point. And, there's another level to this, because everything you said is exactly right. And there's something in the middle of these 2 points. One, the way we're sabotaging ourselves by what we're putting into our bodies, and also the miraculous things healthcare can do. So what happens is we sabotage ourselves, and then when things get really bad, we go to this healthcare system and we say, well, just give me a pill and make me better. And therein lies a big part of the problem, because we've got to adjust our own sense of self-discipline and the way we educate ourselves, so that we're not in a position of showing up where we're the football team and basically we're on our own 1 yard line while the defense is just trying to sack us, push us back into the end zone, and it's over for us. We always seem to be playing defense in healthcare. What you're talking about is playing offense. It's putting all the right things in our bodies so that we're pushing disease down the field where it can't score on us. And that's why the world needs you, brother.
And you, because I do agree with you that it's easy to get on the soapbox, and you have to work with systems that exist, in some way enroll them and say, listen man, let's be honest, the God that we're talking about is profit. So that permeates through so many things. So, as your examples you gave of different ways of looking at things, different ways of looking at IBS and poop and everything else. Well, he worked so hard to prove the concept that it was then profitable. So therefore, it now can fit into the profit center. There is that to consider, because there is a world that controls this whole deal, right? Pharmaceuticals get their hands so far up the ass of the medical fields and all of that stuff, and we could go off on all of that stuff. But the point is, let's just look at this as realists and go, what's going on? And what can we do to help apply better systems? Let's inject. What would it take to inject better health into the system that really just reacts to the defensive nature of that person that's finally tapping out or pushed to the brink, or the wheels coming off? what do you think that is in terms of an individual that, I mean, what is this? Is it like this apathetic view that is weirdly inherent within us as humans, and at the same time we are extraordinary because we've innovated and we push, but then this huge disease of apathy that people will just sit back. I just want to, this is my favorite statement, I just want to live and eat whatever I want, and it's like, yeah, okay, but is that, you want to play with a loaded gun? It's like, what are you talking about? Because you affect yourself in the moment when you eat crap, and you also affect yourself in the tomorrow and the next day and the next and the next. So what kind of life are you actually talking about that you want to live? And you're going to pay that debt. Like, it's a credit card. Like, you're going to pay the debt eventually. So what do you think that is, dude? Like, how do we break this almost psychosis of, I don't want to take responsibility?
Well, I'm thinking some of your podcasts, you perfect example. You had a podcast about fireworks. And I actually helped set off fireworks on Jones Beach in Long Island, I think with the Grucci family. I wrote a story about it for a newspaper. This is like 30 years ago. And I had no idea of what was like exploding in the air around me. But when you do a podcast that explains it, well, now I'm going to see 4th of July very differently. I'm going to see New Year's Eve in Rio de Janeiro very differently. When you put out your podcast on like barbecuing, I'm going to see what was just such ordinary behavior. This is what we were given. And not only that, but attached to good times. And so it's almost like when you tell somebody, not only don't go near the fireworks, it's like you're saying, don't go near the good time. Watch out what's on that barbecue. But all my happy memories from family are at the barbecue. So you know what? I'm going to admit something that it's strange. When I traveled around the world for 10 years without a home before I started interviewing all those people for Esquire, which is how I learned to interview, because I would meet people on buses and trains. I had no money. And so basically sat down next to somebody that I thought would be able to trust me, that I might be able to trust, because at the end of the ride, I kind of needed them to invite me home for at least a meal or like to stay, because I didn't have the money for a hotel. And it led to a very different interviewing style, so that when I went in to talk to Jeff Bezos or to talk to George Clooney, it was very different from any other interview that they would ever have, because I was like still on the bus or the train talking to a toothless 88-year-old grandma trying to have her invite me home for some goulash. And the thing about this is, when we get programmed to love something, it is so hard to give that up. And I saw this with my dad in the last year, because we had dinner every night and he wanted it his way. And what, sometimes my brother would come up, and my brother was like a big proponent of saying stuff like, he just thought it was ridiculous to eat salad. Like his statement was, life is too short to eat salad. So that's kind of what I'm dealing with. And my dad, he basically ate processed foods. And so I had to make a choice. Okay, I'm not going to be fighting with him during this time. He's 89 years old. And so I went with it. I went with it because I just wanted us to be happy in that time. But you know something? Now that it's over, I have gone the other way to the point where I have like close friends who the friendship was forged over barbecue and alcohol. And you know what? COVID was the excuse to say, no, I'm not going to come over. But really what I was saying was, I can't do that anymore. I can't do that to my body anymore. I know too much. And so now I find myself going in this complete opposite direction. And I don't know what's going to happen to my friendships. You know, years ago, I was talking to a very, very successful chef about helping him write a book. And he never did. And then recently he called up and said, you know, remember we were going to do that? Like, what do you think? And I can't. I'm not going back in the direction, even though there was a great friendship there, even though there was just much love and good times. It's almost like you have to choose like new friends, people who are going to say, hey, what's the salad looking like today? And, you know, those people are rarer to find, but my guess is, and you tell me if I'm wrong, like, you know, we could sit down and probably eat salads all week and it'll take us to a great place. So we're out here, and maybe the job is just to let people know about this so we can extend this community, because the word is out. Everybody knows what sugar does to us. I mean, they may not know exactly, but they know it's not good. When I never knew if this was true, but I was told that when I was in high school, that if you put like a nail in a glass of Coke and just left it there, it would disintegrate in a week or so. And I just laughed back then and kept drinking Coke. But I can't do that now. Just I know too much, and I'm getting older, and I've seen what it was like in the last year of my dad's life. I know what's coming. And so it really is on us to step up and find the ways, discipline ourselves, find the ways that new people are coming up with to solve problems, and run with them and form our own community. And maybe we're both doing it in our own ways in our podcast. I'd love to have you come on mine, because we could use some of that vinegar.
Oh yeah, I can bring that for sure. I can bring a big ass salad and vinegar and all of it. But I love what you said, because I resonate with that, and I think a lot of other people did too, in terms of, like, you know, just using COVID as a little muse, not so little, but as a muse of, and really life and that pressure of life, right? Life naturally performs pressure on us if we're not. And the word that pops in my head while you're talking is integration. Like you kept saying, I know too much. And so it's like you can no longer know and not be out of integration or into your, without, you don't want to divorce your knowing anymore, right? It's kind of like you're like, yeah, okay, I'm good. This is me now, and this is what I want to follow, and this feels better. And then when you see your father and you see how precious that is, even though everyone's got their thing, but at least he was living to the best way and to the best integration that he had and what made him feel, and what a blessing he actually felt. It seems like he felt like he chose when to go, right? He goes, okay, that's it. And you knew that, and you were connected to that. And I too, through COVID, was like, it acted as a truth serum, not only I think across the board for a lot of people individually, like, where do you stand? Who are you? What do you believe? And friendships, were strained, and many were forged, and there are these subsets of tribes that kind of are emerging. And for me, I, like you, like, the only reason I'm talking about these fatal conveniences and these things that are kind of punching you in the face that you don't even know are there, because we got to wake up to that. We don't want to be walking around putting on a shirt full of formaldehydes and undercutting our immune system and our endocrine system when we don't have to. Like, because there's solutions for it. You don't have to put that type of shirt on. You can put something else on. So the point is that the only and I think you and I are on these similar paths in our own way, and that is only to get to a better solution, only to get to a different way that's maybe more integrated, that's more for life, rather than just the reactive nature of some of these systems that just seem old and out of date. um and some people, as you know, they're hell-bent, and they're just going to ride that train all the way to the end of their life, and it's not our job to wake them up,
No,
right?
no. This really is it's the definition of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are so many people that are dying of like opioid overdoses now. Like, there's absolutely no need for this. People are getting killed by fentanyl. There's no need to be putting that into our bodies, whether we know it's there or not. And yet, with all the deaths, people aren't getting the message.
And our system created the damn shit, right? And that's the thing. It's not like it was a street drug. It's like,
No,
it's a leading cause of death between what, like 18 to 25 or some. I mean, I'll look at the
like
stats, but
it's like to 50.
Jesus. Yeah.
You're right. And this we're sabotaging ourselves, while at the same time, there are people who are coming up with solutions. There are people who are out there trying to educate, and it's a battle. That's what this is. This is a war. And that's why, when we started the podcast and I identified, I didn't fully understand it when the first time I heard you say tap water, Teflon. And then you told me about the bib, the Teflon bib. And now I understood where your voice was coming from. There's the word, but there is the voice. And unless we know this, and until I know about the bib, it's really hard to understand. But now, again, now I know about the bib. There's no turning back. And I'm telling you, I met a guy, he's a chemist. They call him the Kemperor. I mean, he's like the emperor of chemistry. And he's got a company that is basically taking natural materials and twisting the chemistry to produce plastics, what we now know are plastics, but they remain natural. It's coming.
Yeah.
And those bibs will be made natural down the road.
Yeah.
So we're racing that way. Everything is a race. We're racing with the environment, man. That you're just saying that the terrible shape that those glaciers and ice caps are in on the North Pole and in Antarctica. And we're really in a race against time to try and figure out these solutions, educate people, and adopt them.
Yeah.
So I feel you, brother. I feel you. I'm going to come out of this with a little more advocacy in my voice. That's what I was missing. I was that neutral questioner. And when I leave here today, there's going to be a lot of your advocacy inside me, and I'm going to let it out. Somebody told me, a guy who's a political strategist for presidents. He said, Cal, if you're going to go in this direction, like, got to pick a fight. you got to just haul off and hit somebody. And the bigger, the better, because that's what's going to get attention. And I say, nah, it's not the way I do things. I ask questions, I get answers, I let people make up their own mind. But you know what? The more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm listening to you. This is a battle, and it's going to need passionate advocacy. Just asking the questions alone ain't going to do it.
Well, just like you kind of outed yourself already. You've been asking the questions, you've been gaining the knowledge, and you can't go back anymore. So
No.
so you're embodying that which you've now integrated into your heart and soul and mind, right? So it naturally is, like, for me, it's like, yeah, is it a battle? Is it a thing? Yeah. But I always go back to, I think there is a tone, there is a tonal I don't know what the word is, but there's a tone to hitting that common sense space inside of everybody. Because I've thought about this a lot, right? We've done shows and down to earth and climate change and talked about a bunch of stuff, and I finally got pissed off. I was like, we got our new TV show coming out, right? Down to Earth season 2. We're talking about a lot of regen ag. We're talking about, in one episode, I heard the term climate change 6 times, and I was pissed, because you know what I'm listening for? I'm listening for the average person. What the hell does climate change actually mean to me? What does it mean? Like, the tool of climate change, I don't dig anymore. I don't like the tool. Doesn't mean I don't agree with the stupid shit we're doing, but the tool that it's become, I don't like it, because it's a tool of manipulation that you as a person are doing something wrong. Whereas you have the same, my point, you have the same conversation. Okay, let's use agriculture as an example. Big topic. Monoculture, tilling the soils, releasing huge amounts of CO2, factory farming, methane, 100 times more toxic. Like, you can get into all this stuff, right? The contribution to climate change is ridiculous, right? But if I talk about that, going, we need to create different agricultural practices, regenerate, blah, blah, blah. And that's going to draw down CO2. If I'm listening from my small town in Minnesota, they're going, what? I don't understand. What the hell does that have to do with? I don't get it. Like, what are you talking about? Like, now you're just whipping out this term. You're talking politics. You're talking, and now you want me to save energy on my light bulbs. What are you talking about actually? And so if you look at that actually, if you follow nature, Cal, if you follow nature, because we've divorced nature a long time ago. We go into healthcare, we divorced natural common sense, we divorced going outside and breathing air and sleeping and all of this stuff. In agriculture, we divorced ourselves in the way that we use, the Aboriginals say we've been doing it for 60,000 years, meaning growing food as a community, blah, blah, blah. But we divorced it. So what happens is, in an agricultural example, if you say, listen, the farmers themselves don't have sovereignty anymore because now they've been chemicalized, right? So now they have to buy seeds, and that's just the opposite of a farmer. The farmers would go to seed, have their own seed, have their own sovereignty, have their land, not be chemicalizing anything, right? Yeah, you need to fertilize and all of these things, but you do it naturally. My point is, if you regenerate your soil, build your soil back, every farmer will understand the strength of the soil. Then, strong soil, strong plant. Build a strong plant. Plant naturally has defense mechanisms, so less herbicides, less pesticides, less everything else. Plus, there's more compounds in that food now. There's more active minerals and vitamins and antioxidants and everything else. So now, the same conversation, we need to regenerate to draw down CO2. Actually, drawing down CO2 is a side effect of helping the soil, supporting a strong plant. That strong plant then supports the human because it's stronger for them. Their defenses go up. They're healthier as a result. And guess what? Now the farmer himself has more sovereignty because we've now let go of the chemicals and the GMOs and all of that stuff, and we've gotten back to farming. And now, as a result of following that principle that goes back 60,000 years, we can actually increase yields because we're protecting that which is the greatest gold on the planet, and that is the soil. And now that farmer is not succumb to a chemicalized, we went from 90% in the 1940, we had 90% of all people in America were growing food. We're farmers. Guess what we're at now? 2%.
Wow. Wow.
But yet every person is owning more and more land, right? But it's all chemicalized. So anyway, I just want to make that point in that. So you have a climate change conversation that's massively different than this bullshit that they're talking about. Like, bring it down. Understand that, oh shit, of course that's how I want to farm. Of course I want to support my farmer. And guess what? We can eliminate our food scarcity by us, instead of the 46 million acres of lawn that we're just blowing water on, turn into a food forest. Go back to the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, when we pretty much all had gardens, right? Growing our food. So this is how we do it, Cal. We get it back down to the individuals, the communities, the things that we can do. We can do this. And that's where we need to get. So we get the moms aware of these bibs. We get the moms aware of the deodorants that have heavy metals that are contributing to breast cancer and all of that stuff. We said, no more, man. No more. No more. We can change this stuff, but we have to be aware of it. And all of these weird regulatory bodies and these systems and these governments that seem to just have the bros and they want to stay in their box, fuck them. They can stay that, but we can raise the alarm. And then as soon as the alarm is high enough and the most people have that attention, they're going to change their ways. We all know that the people run this country, not the other way around. And we need to start grabbing our power back again. And, so anyway, that's my rant.
Well, you're right on target. And in fact, I was telling you about Glenn Tolman, the CEO of Transcarent, that company that's reshaping healthcare. And he said the exact same thing. He said that it's big customer that's going to make the change. And basically, you're saying the same thing. And I'm sitting here wondering, I got to admit it, like my mind functions in this crazy way where questions just come into it and they just stop me cold. And you're telling me about all these lawns that we could turn into gardens. And I just wondered, like, where did lawns come from?
Yeah.
Why? Who came up with this idea?
Status. It was a status symbol, well manicured lawns. And then we just continue this bullshit story.
I mean, was there a first person with a lawn?
I think it was from I think I dug into this a little bit. I think it was the Queen. I think the Queen of England.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah, and we're sitting here going, where's our food going to come from? Like, oh my God, we have shortages. And the government, if they really had their heads screwed on right, all these stimulus checks and everything else, there was a lot of people that were out of work because of COVID, needing the money. There's a lot of people that didn't need the money. They got a bunch of money. You know what they should have done? Where do you live? Okay, great. Here's a seed box. Go plant some food, create some security, create some food. Like, that's health.
Wow.
And that's the everything's flipped on its head. So the truth is, I have been circling myself with people, water, power, food, shelter. That's what I'm focused on. Solution. The stuff, the part 2 of a conversation we're going to have, I'll have your head spinning with the amount of amazing people that are doing incredible things that will decentralize power systems and like stuff that are in the works now. I've seen myself. And so that's where and there is more money that's being created or being positioned for things like that. So I am too excited for the future, ridiculously. Ending single-use plastics, ending pollution, using pollution as fuel, clean fuel. We could transform, we could create a carbohydrate economy of ethanol from the panhandle of the Gulf Coast. We could grow sufficient crops that are used for fuel and ethanol, octane, amazing clean fuel, and we would not need to ship oil in here or gas and all of that stuff. We could be independent. The calculations already work. Why aren't we doing it? Distillation, amazing. Anytime anything has a carbohydrate, you can distill it down. So we have tons of opportunity. We just need to change these systems. So, yeah, man.
Cheers to the outsiders, brother.
You're right. You're right. I think like you get pressured and you get pushed and pressured, and certain people are going to go, I'm not going to stay down. I'm not going to be a victim. We're going to create, just like the Uber driver IBS story. It's like, hey, they had no answers for me and actually said there was nothing I can do. fuck that shit, right? No, the spirit of us as humans will not, no, we'll create.
Well, I got to thank you because you really shined a light on where I'm going.
Mm.
And I'm in this transition between being the journalist who asks questions. I still speak and show people how to tell stories. But there's this next level of, I don't know even if education is the right word, because it's something way more soulful that just connects you with the right path for your life. And I can see that you got it. And I can also see where it came from, because being around your dad when he was in that situation, that'll do it to you.
Yeah. I mean, unnecessary suffering. My dad was suffering unnecessarily. Led him to alcohol, and then it killed him. So it's like,
I'm sorry.
yeah, I mean, listen, it's a gift. He's around, I feel him. Your dad, you probably feel him. They're around.
Long as you remember them, they're
Yeah,
alive.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's what else are we gonna do, dude? We gotta swing for the fences, we gotta integrate, and we gotta keep going. And I just really enjoyed this conversation, dude. And hopefully it's one of many. And I have a feeling it is. And
I can guarantee you that.
yeah, you're the best, dude. Thank you, my man.
I feel like I found a new brother. So
Amen.
let's keep this going. Great luck with the show. I look forward to seeing the new season and following your adventures and just learning more about this path toward advocacy.